Alright guys, today I'll teach you how all the chess pieces move. So first of all, there's this pawn. A pawn, if it hasn't moved before, can move forward 1 square, or it can move forward 2 squares, but only if it's on the second rank, which means or 7th rank, which means it hasn't moved before. After it has been moved, the pawn can only move forward 1 more square. For example, here the pawn can move forward 2 squares because it hasn't moved before, but afterwards, if we play here, the pawn can only move forward 1 more square. Also, a pawn takes diagonally forward. For example, I play pawn to here, then a pawn can take this pawn because it's diagonally forward, and the other pawn can also take back because it's diagonally forward. And a pawn cannot move forward if there's another piece in front of the pawn, and it cannot take forward. And also, the pawn cannot move backwards. It's impossible. It can only move forwards 1 square, or if it hasn't moved 2 squares or 1 square. Okay, now I have a question for you. How many squares, or how can all 3 of these pawns move right now? I'll give you 5 seconds. So, this pawn can only move 1 square forward because it has moved before from this square. So it can only move 1 square forward. This pawn, let me move the piece. This pawn, although it seems like it can't move forward because there's a piece in front of it, can actually take diagonally front. So it can also move. And when the pawn reaches the 8th rank, I forgot to say before, it can either promote to bishop, rook, knight, or queen. In this case, I'll promote to a queen. And then for this pawn, it can move 1 square forward or 2 squares forward because it hasn't moved and it's still on the second rank. So it can either play here. You can either play here, or you can play here. Okay, now we have the knight, which is this horse-like figure right here. And knights can move in this curved pattern, such as 1 move forward and then 1 move diagonally left or right. 1 move, if you look at a different angle, you can go 1 move forward here, left or right, here, left or right. And then it can go on in all directions, which means it can go here, 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 and here. It's just this curved pattern like this. And for knights, the interesting thing about it is it can jump over pieces. For example, if black plays a move here, although there's a pawn in its path, the knight is still able to jump over this piece and take the pawn right here. It's possible. Also, knights can also jump backwards. And yeah, that's basically what a knight does. Alright, here are some practice problems. My problem to you is, how can these 2 knights move right now, and where to? I'll give you 5 seconds. So, this knight can move to this square, and also this square, because the knight cannot move off the board, and also this square is blocked by the queen. This knight can move to this square, this square, this square, and this square, because it's the same pattern. And we can move here because remember, although there's a piece in the knight's path, knights can jump over pieces. That's what's special about the knight. Alright, so for the bishop moves diagonally. It can move as far as it wants, but it has to be diagonal. For example, the dark square bishop can only move on dark squares because it has to move diagonally, and the light square bishop has to stay on the light squares because it's diagonal. So for example, white can play the move bishop to here, for example, because it's diagonal. And after black plays, for the bishop, it's unlike the knight, it cannot move past pieces. For example, there's a pawn in its way, it can't go past the pawn. So it has to go like diagonally again. It can also move back, such as this way. Yeah, and that's the bishop. Alright, my question to you is, where can this white bishop move right now? I'll give you 5 seconds. So, this white bishop can move all along this diagonal because this bishop can move diagonally, and all along this diagonal because it's also diagonally. But the bishop cannot take the knight here because the bishop is on the way. But the bishop can't take this bishop because there's nothing blocking its way to take this bishop. And also, except for the pawn, which takes diagonally forward, every other single piece in chess takes the same way it moves, such as the queen can take diagonally forward and horizontal, bishops can take diagonally, and so on and so forth. Do you want to know how this piece, and this piece moves? Well, stay tuned for part 2 of this series.